Welcome to the Live Explore podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sean Payne, co-host of the Build Better podcast, brought to you by Live Explore. Today I have with me my co-host.
I'm Isaiah Chass.
And also we have another really cool episode with Marcela Piedra, Rohnert Park City Manager. Did I get that right?
You sure did.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. We basically had to just hit play right now because we are having so many cool conversations. This is going to be a really cool podcast for a variety of reasons. One is that you're coming down here and you're going to be talking about a mixed-use development project at 6400 State Farm Drive, but also just your perspective on Rohnert Park and development, because so much of our podcasts here are like beating our heads against these cement walls, being like, why wouldn't this community want this project? Things of that nature. And Rohnert Park is one of the communities that really has put in housing elements and have a couple hotels in, and you already have quite a few hotels there. And so you have a lot of cool projects going in. And I think the community has really already benefited from these. But let's dive into it. So let's kind of get into it that way. Why don't you tell us a little bit, about the project at State Farm Drive? How did it come about? So.
Yes, thank you. And first of all, thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
And I appreciate the interest in what it is a very important community project for not only Rohnert Park, but the surrounding area.
Right.
And the project actually came about many, many years. I mean, this project has been talked about for many years. There's been discussion about having a downtown in Rohnert Park. If you think about cities and communities, almost any community you visit has a downtown.
Right.
And that's been a missing piece for
That's kind of the
Rohnert
stigma
Park.
around Rohnert Park. I mean, we sell real estate. So that's kind of like what people say is like, oh, it doesn't really have a downtown. So
And it's interesting because when you go visit communities, especially for us that are in local government and are in development, is you want to go visit the downtown because it's a different feel from your community. And that's missing. So the excitement that this project has for the community that is really, really embracing it and wants it is amazing. And for us to be in a stage right now where we are trying to procure, to hopefully partner with a developer that can help us achieve this dream of this, as you said, mixed-use project is amazing to have that opportunity to do it now. We know, and obviously you're in the real estate arena, that it could be difficult and there's challenges.
Right.
But also, I mean, I've heard this, that sometimes when it's not the right time to build, that's the right time to do it. And so we feel that we know it's going to take some time to get there, but we know it's not impossible. And all the support from the city, as you pointed out, I mean, as a community, you want to work with your development community because we can't do it alone,
right.
And they can't do it alone either. So it truly is a public-private partnership.
And it's so important because if a developer looks at a certain community that it's so difficult to work with, you're not going to have that attraction for any of them to come to your town to develop a project. With this partnership, I can see so many developers wanting to come and be a part of this because it's two-sided and you're really trying to make it happen.
Absolutely. And you don't know how important it is. And this is why we went with the request for qualification process, because we want it to be fair and we want a very transparent process. We want anybody that's interested in this project to have the same qualifications and the same criteria that any other individual interested in this project will have. For us, right now, the project is shovel ready. So what does it mean to be shovel ready? The city has invested in upgrading the infrastructure there, sewer, water. We also are actively looking for funding sources to be able to assist. We know that the project's going to have a housing component. It's going to have a retail component, a hotel. And then what we see is the heart of that project, which is we're looking for a community square, a community plaza, where we can bring in our community to do festivals, to do activities, movie at the park. I mean, you name it.
Right.
The excitement right now that we get from the community as far as ideas that they have of what they would like to see there. I mean, I have seniors saying, please build this because we want to buy a condo there. We want to live there.
Right.
And you see, to have that excitement and to have even our youth that are excited about what are you going to bring in here new for us to enjoy. I mean, that's community support. So for us as a city, and now talking about the city, when you have a developer that's interested, I mean, because they're going to be investing money in here, is how can we make it easy for them? The city has had a reputation of being business friendly. Well, there's a reason. We are not there to make it difficult for anyone. And we also try to be very clear as to processes so that, anybody walking in is comfortable. I mean, to give you an example with this project, right now, if once we choose our developer and they have their plans, within 6 months, they can get their building permits, which when you think about it, it's extremely streamlined.
Yes.
And the reason being is because throughout the years, the city has invested a lot of time and energy to get to the point where that project is just ready for somebody to come in and develop.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important for our listeners to hear that often it's that process that often kills projects. Just because developers often, in the case where they come in and they've purchased a piece of land or have a loan on a piece of land, it's those holding costs that are really expensive. And so municipalities, and people know this within, that if they can extend the project, then they can kill it. And so often that happens. So that's something that I know a lot of places now, a lot of cities are trying to figure out, how can we streamline this? How can we streamline this? How can we streamline this? So they're a little bit behind the times that way, trying to figure out 6 months is very, very fast. So
it is very fast. It's really going to be, I mean, if the developer comes in and has their plans ready to go, it could be even sooner than that. Because why? Because usually where you also have a delay is if you're changing the zone, if you're doing environmentals, all of that is ready.
Right.
And a lot of homework, also even for a developer, because like you say, I mean, sometimes, and it's unfortunate because we've seen it, is that in many instances people buy pieces of property and they don't check, well, can I do this project here? Is the zoning the proper one?
Right.
So there's a lot of that also that happens, unfortunately.
Right.
But here, again, if you look at the document itself, which is available on our city's website, there's a lot of links to different studies, different, just requirements that we reference throughout the request for qualifications. So again, the transparency of everything that has been done. And we're trying to say, hey, we're ready. It's just who's going to come in and work with us.
Right.
I mean, that really should be the model of so many other towns and cities where you have a vision of what you want, and then you have that for the developers to come in and have that taken care of, rather than a developer trying to come in and work around what the community wants, and that process alone, like you said, can take so long. It's so cool.
It is, but we had an interesting conversation before the cameras rolled. Let's talk a little bit about your vision for this project. We were talking about height and stuff like that. So building heights, things like that. Can you go back into what is the vision for this project?
Yes. So the vision for the project, the site is very strategically located from many standpoints. One is you have the SMART train along the east boundary. You have Rohnert Park Expressway, which is a major artery for our city. And then it's also surrounded by public facilities such as public safety. Our library is right across the street.
Right.
And then you have, the Interstate 101, which obviously has a lot of traffic. So the site in itself is in a very prime location. As you see on the conceptual plan, there's a hotel that's planned there.
Uh-huh.
And basically, the main vision is for us to have a space where we can have the unique shop, the unique restaurant, a very walkable, pedestrian-friendly community. Obviously, housing is a major component of this.
Sure.
And, is offering those opportunities for mixed use. Now, what we have heard loud and clear from members of our community, because if you stand on the corner of State Farm and Rohnert Park Expressway and you see the site, basically, if you're facing east, it's a beautiful view.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's just the way Sonoma County is you have these beautiful views.
Right.
That because maybe there hasn't been any buildings there, we all appreciate that. So some of the feedback we have received from the community is they don't want to see high rises, which in our area, if you look at Rohnert Park, we don't have high, high rises. We
all
have
throughout Sonoma County.
exactly.
It's
So
kinda like that,
basically, the highest building really that we have maybe goes 4 stories.
Right.
And so in our communications with potential developers is
Sure.
we say you can go up to 7 stories, but ideally, if you can stay within 4, 5 stories at the most,
Right.
it would be great. Because again, is we're trying to appreciate also the natural
Trying to
beauty
take in, yeah.
of the community, and that goes in line with what we want to see, and that's important for us.
Right, right. So we're kind of in, I mentioned this earlier, we're kind of in, I would say, a brutal fight regarding an overlay in our historic district to get a taller height limit allowed for a hotel here in town to go up to about 68 feet, 5 stories plus a rooftop bar. And we're a proponent for housing. And speaking with developers, it seems that there's a metric at that 5 or 6 story building that it becomes for more financially feasible. That's what we've heard over and over again. Have you heard any pushback from developers when you've said, hey, we want to really keep it, even though you can, we do allow 7, we really want to keep it, the community's saying 4 stories. Has any developer said, gosh, we need to go 1 story higher to make this work for us? So it sounds like you're somewhat flexible on that too.
And we are, and
Okay,
part of this
okay.
process and what we've tried to emphasize is that we're being flexible, and we would
That's really important. That's where I want to go with this. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
that we
so.
want to entertain proposals, because at the end of the day, I've said this, several times already as we have been presenting the project, that it takes 2 things for this project to work. One is we need people,
Right.
meaning the developer. We need, obviously, our labor to be able to, and our community, most importantly, our residents that are going to go and support those shops, the restaurants that we're going to have, the amenities that we're going to have there,
Right.
and money.
Uh-huh.
And so we
Yes.
understand that there are certain things where in the pro forma of that particular developer that they're going to have to see, because we understand it's a business, and it's a business transaction at the end.
Right.
And so I think we have to be open, and the city is open, and our leadership, which I think sometimes we don't emphasize that, how important it is for your elected body to also embrace this and be supportive. And our elected body is 100% behind this project and wants to see it happen.
That's
because
awesome.
it's a long time that we've been talking about this.
Right.
And so we're ready to move dirt out there. And so, the flexibility, and we have emphasized and really stressed this throughout this process, is that there is that flexibility from the city to be able to look at all options.
Right, right. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. You've already touched on this, but could you maybe any cool ideas or favorite ideas you've heard about this project, or maybe even from community or something like that? You're like, hey, I'd really like to see this. Because is there any, or even if it's crazy and it's maybe not even feasible, is there anything there that you ideas that you really like that
So
way?
let me tell you something, and there's been a business that and this is just not even in downtown. I think the community would be so happy if we were to get this, is a Trader Joe's. They keep on telling us that they want a Trader Joe's. Ideally, obviously, they would like it in our downtown, but as long as we have it in Rohnert Park, and also, unique restaurants. I mean, we appreciate, because I think we have been very successful in being able to attract chain restaurants. We have Red Lobster, we have Olive Garden, so
Right.
we have a lot of the name brands, Applebee's.
And you have the casinos, which
and we have
has
the
a
casino.
handful of nice restaurants there.
And they do, and they're very successful. But people want to see uniqueness. When you think about it, and if you look at your own, kind of support of, certain things, is you like to go to that different type of restaurant or that different type of shop that it offers some unique experience that you would normally not see, in communities.
Right.
And so that's also what the feedback that we have received is, they want to see entertainment, a wine tasting room.
Right.
Because if you think about it, I mean, we're in wine country, but
Right.
we don't have a wine tasting room in Rohnert Park.
Right.
So these,
You do have, I got to give a shout out to
Okay.
Simmer Claw Bar, because that is
Okay.
a fun and unique experience in
Yes,
Rohnert Park.
that's
so that's
true.
a great
That is
place
true.
to go. Anyway, so
But
yeah.
those are the
but
kinds
those
of
are the
things,
type of
and
things,
they're
yeah.
limited.
Right,
Like,
right.
I'll give you an example. If you right now, I mean, it's very limited what we have. If you want to say, let's say your team, your business team,
Yep.
out for a dinner, and you want to have a separate room to be able to have and enjoy a nice time. It's a challenge trying to find something like that in our city.
Right.
And so, there's certain voids there that we have that we hope that, we're able to achieve with this project.
Certainly. That makes complete sense that way.
Especially from a tourism standpoint, it is important to have those little boutique spots and
Exactly.
unique spots that attract people from all over. So yeah, gosh, I have a lot of questions, but
What's the community feedback been overall? Like,
Just get it built. It's like
Just
start
really,
right
that's
now.
what-
That's what they wanted. It's like you're behind already.
Right,
Start
right.
moving dirt out there and get us this.
right.
Because for many reasons, I shared with you that I have even members of the senior community saying, we want to be there. We want to be able to walk the site. We want to be able to enjoy all this while we're still alive.
Sure.
So, so there is a lot of excitement for the project. Like I mentioned, the community square, that space is being able to, the city does a very nice job of across the street where our public safety building and
Yes.
library is. We do the parties on the plaza during summertime. We want to expand that, and so they want to see it happen there.
Right.
There's so much that the community is just hungry to be able to see.
There is, yeah. Like when I was saying earlier, that was like kind of the stigma that it doesn't have a downtown. But when did you start like the farmers markets there? Like COVID messed up my internal clock.
Yes.
But I feel like it was just maybe a little bit before COVID or something like that. Those events, or have been going on there longer.
Yes, they've actually been going on for a long
Even
period
with
of time.
like the live music and things like
Oh,
that.
they
Okay.
incorporated, obviously, as you do events, you evolve and you
Uh-huh.
expand and you obviously do more things. So they basically, we had the farmers market separately, but then
Right.
it was like, why don't we bring entertainment? And
Yeah,
that
that's what it
has
was.
just been exactly.
Yeah, when that started.
That's right.
When did that start?
So I believe a couple years ago
Okay.
it started, because they've been doing it for a while, but that just
Yeah.
brought a different element to
and the food
event.
trucks and things like that,
Absolutely.
and you could see like when you
incredible.
talk about like it was so embraced by the community and they wanted it.
Absolutely.
It was so much fun. I really feel it was right before COVID, and then it like
Yes, it was
got
before COVID,
right
but then there
before
was a
COVID.
pause.
And yeah, there was a pause there,
That's
right? Because I
correct.
remember like I was like, oh wait, we can't go to that now. So it was a lot of fun too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so expanding that across the street, I just think that's like what
It's
Rohnert
the
Park
normal
really
transition.
needs. That would be really really good that way. That's really cool. So. What are some of the obstacles? It sounds like things have gone pretty smoothly, and you've been set up for this. This is which is an unusual conversation. But what are some of the obstacles that you've had that you've had during this process?
So I'll tell you that some of the challenges, and these are overall challenges, is, as I mentioned, this project has been talked about for years.
Uh-huh.
And in many cases with projects like this, like with any development, really the obstacle is whether or not the developer is going to follow through with the project and be able to do it,
Right.
and also be able to have the financial means to be able to do it. So those are from the standpoint of what could possibly create a barrier to this project. It really is that
Sure.
we end up not maybe working with a developer that is as committed as we are,
Right.
and also does not have the financial capacity to follow through.
Right. Right.
And again, we're going back to those two main things that we need, which is people and money.
Right.
So if you don't have that, then that's a major obstacle
Sure.
with
Sure.
a project like this.
Yeah. Yep. And on that note, let's get into a little bit like the housing component on this. What potentially could this project? How many homes could it develop? Things like that. What?
So
could
we're
come about?
we're looking at multifamily housing.
Okay.
We estimate that about 400 housing units are going to go in on the site. The city does own the property. It's about 30 acres. And part of when a jurisdiction owns property, we have to comply with a state process known as the Surplus Land Act, which basically says that you need to provide whatever number of housing you build, 25% of that has to be affordable housing,
Uh-huh.
which for us is not even an issue, because
right.
we, even if we didn't have that requirement, we would do it, because it is very important for us, which you talked about, what community feedback are you getting? So from an employer standpoint, we are getting feedback from local businesses that they would love to have people be able to afford to live within the community they work.
Right.
So that's very important for us. And so, even without that requirement from the state, we would still do whatever we can to make sure that those units are affordable for really our working class
Sure.
individuals.
Sure. No, that's great. That's great. So potentially 400 units, and 100
About
of them.
100.
Of them would be
That's correct.
affordable that way, which is really important.
especially in a centralized area near. I mean, we
Amenities.
talk about so much about having housing downtown.
Right.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
It's a perfect place for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and kind of create that economic center that way. Talking about like mixed use, we're going to veer off. So Rohnert Park has this unique development of like, when it was put in place, you said that it was designed for every neighborhood to have a park, a pool,
In a school.
in a school
That's
for
right.
for every area that way. Kind of looking at it like from the outside in, it looks a little bit like you have these little neighborhoods that are like somewhat isolated, but if you were to change the zoning to more mixed use and allowed more like mixed use projects, little grocery stores and things in those areas, you have the natural 15-minute neighborhood. Like in that sense, like you're almost really set up for it if you just like sprinkle in some mixed use projects around those sections. I mean, they could very well easily become 15-minute neighborhoods or neighborhoods that people really, you go downtown for the really cool event, but you probably may have like your life just around there that way. So is that something that you guys are talking about as well? I know there's a push for going towards mixed use projects in the future, getting away from a single family zoning. Is that a conversation you're having as well there? So
Yes, in fact, if you think about it, if you look at, let's just take the downtown site.
Right.
I mean, you're within walking distance of major commercial shopping centers. I mean,
Sure.
you have a grocery store there with Rayleigh's, Safeway. If you want to, go to the library, you're right across the street. There's a lot of already amenities that you have surrounding the site.
Right.
And if you take other areas, for example, and this is something too that you asked about change of zone and zoning and all that. So let me take you to the Costco area.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the Costco area and look at what's surrounding that, you have a combination of hotel
Right.
and also several apartment complexes.
Yeah, what a
that are
great
there.
job there. Over there.
And I'll tell you what, people there, because you also have some, grocery stores along there, and so it's within walking distance.
You're already doing it. Yeah, you just
So
answered
we're
my
already
question.
but I also believe that it's part of how Rohnert Park was created,
Right.
because it was intended for that. It was basically intended to be more walkable
Uh-huh.
than vehicle centered, and the downtown. One of the unique opportunities, and I think it's a big positive for us in this project, is if you think about the Smart Line, is we are designing with that in mind.
Uh-huh.
Other communities perhaps don't have that because it's already built.
Right.
But for us, we want to integrate them as part of this process,
Right.
because they're critical. I mean, if you were to pick up the Smart train from the Rohnert Park station and you get off the Smart train, I mean, going back to the views, I mean, it's right there. And,
Right.
I mean, for us to be able to, we talked about entertainment and all that. I mean, being able to pick up the Smart train and stopping there and, going and shopping or going and to do, business there or attend one of our events. I mean, it's so strategically positioned that it's just ready for, again, prime for development.
Right. Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. So from here, now you had a public meeting, a mandatory public meeting. Can you tell us a little bit about that recently?
Yes. So what it is, because we have initiated the request for qualifications process, we did a mandatory developer meeting,
Okay.
which means that we asked for any developer that's interested in this project, they needed to attend that meeting.
Uh-huh.
And there's a reason why we made it mandatory. It's kind of like a job interview.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes, you're interviewing for a job and you have no idea, you haven't done your research about the company.
Right.
Or, if you're looking for a job in a, local government, you've never visited the city. So you want to know what you're getting yourself into.
Right.
And for us, it was important, one, that they came to the city and knew who we were, knew where we were located. And not only that, but at the end of, the presentation, because we held a portion of it at the Rohnert Park Library. And then from there, we went to the site and we walked the site.
Right.
And I can tell you from the reaction from those that were in attendance, they were like, "Wow, this is just amazing! It's beautiful. I mean, it's great." So I think it just reaffirmed just the vision and the potential of the site.
Right.
So going through a process like this is so critical, especially for a development like this. Is you want to make sure you do that. You want to make sure that you're able to showcase, your site.
Sure. Okay, I have a whole nother round of questions. Feel free to jump in at any point. So, again, for our audience, like for the affordable housing component, it takes a special developer that just specializes in affordable housing because it's very complex field to navigate to make that project come to fruition that way. But I'm just curious, like, what was the makeup of those developers? Was it like local, regional?
So it was a combination. I mean, we had a
Right,
combination.
okay.
There was local developers that
Very
were
cool.
interested. We had, developers that develop at a regional level, national level. So you name it. I mean, because we've been advertising the request for qualifications in different means
Right.
to, cast our net, obviously, as wide as we can.
Sure.
Because one of the main components too for us is that they have experience doing mixed use type of projects because it is a combination of different ingredients that we want to have in that project. And so it is important that we are dealing with people that are experienced, that perhaps have even worked with the city to be able to do these projects. Because even when you work with the city too, there's certain requirements that you have and certain things that, certain layers that we, like for example, I talked about the Surplus Land Act. There could be people that don't understand that. I mean, you talked about affordable housing developers. It is a very specialized area of development.
Sure.
Because you need to understand the language. You need to understand how to work with the state.
And it's
how
like
to,
written in German. So
yes. So you have to have, and then not only is it when you're acquiring the funding to be able to do it, but it's the ongoing. I mean, depending on the type of housing that you do. If it's for home ownership, then you have a 45-year restriction that has to be affordable for 45 years.
Right.
If it's rental, it's 55 years. So you basically enter in this relationship, with that developer for the long run.
Yes.
But throughout those years is you have to monitor, you have to make sure that you are, completing these monitorings that to make sure that the families that are living there are of the right income. You have to do income certificate. So there's an entire process of management that has to take place that only an experienced developer would be able to handle something like this.
Right. So it sounds like obviously that makes sense. That experience is like the number one criteria. I think that probably will answer my next question. And I don't mean to put you in the hot seat, but like when you're working with like a national developer versus like more of a local developer, I mean, I would think there's pluses and minuses for working with both, but have you found it's easier to work with one versus the other that way? Or is it just kind of like, again, comes back to experience and just like a case-by-case basis that way?
It's both experience and case-by-case.
Okay.
Because you could have a national developer that has no idea, this is probably the first time they're doing a project like this, so you can struggle with that.
Right.
You can have a local developer, that may not be as experienced. So it's really a combination. I mean, and this is why experience also, part of the criteria is that they've done similar design plans so that we can see, hey, I mean, a major area for us to review is once we get proposals and we look at the different projects that they've done, is part of our review and part of our selection process is going to be going to those projects they've built so that we can also walk them, feel and say, hey, you know what, I don't think I like that. So we don't, can we look at this differently? That is so important.
Right.
Because you need to make sure that, again, you're dealing with someone that has done this and we're not the first project they're going to be doing.
Sure. So you've did I read 2016 or when did this project start? It started a couple years ago. You guys been working on it.
About 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. It's been that long.
It's been that long.
How long do you think? What's the vision for how long do you think it'll take to see it to completion?
So I get that question a lot, and the way
I know that's a huge moving target.
It's a big one. Because what we foresee happening is perhaps the project is gonna be done in phases.
Right.
Just because of the fact that let me just take the affordable housing piece. So if you start on that path, in many cases, because you have to compete for tax credits or you have to rely, because those are subsidized projects.
Right, they have to be.
So they
for
have
our
to,
audience, the only way you can build affordable housing is to have it greatly subsidized, and even then it's difficult. Sometimes you have to have a more expensive housing component to subsidize it. So
absolutely,
so
they're
so
highly subsidized. Exactly.
Right,
so those can take anywhere from could be 2 years, 3 years. So it takes some time to be able to position projects like this.
Sure.
It's not unusual to see projects like this, full build out, anywhere from 10, 15, 20 years. We hope that it doesn't take that long, but in many cases, it just happens that way. And we hope that it doesn't because, I started saying in the beginning that this is a shovel-ready project. Usually when you take that long is when you, for example, when you haven't cleared environmental,
right,
when you need to do some changes of zones, general plan amendments, which in certain cases, sometimes you have community opposition. And sometimes those tend to derail projects and they delay. In this particular case, everything, the zoning is there, the environmental review is there, everything, there's support from the community. One of the things too that we have been doing as city staff is we've actually been knocking on doors of our neighbors. Because, you talked about community feedback. Well, part of the view and the fact that we want to preserve our trees, the number one complaint too that people are concerned about is traffic. So whenever you have growth, is expected is there's going to be some traffic, and parking and all that. So one of the things that we have been doing is we have been outreaching to our neighbors because we want to make sure that we are a good neighbor and explaining because we have some shopping centers that are near the site and they're concerned about competition. I mean, I think who wouldn't be?
Right.
And so what we have been saying is our intent is to complement you, not compete with you, because we're only hurting ourselves as a city.
Right.
So we want to see everybody succeed. And what we've been trying to say is there's going to be synergy here. I mean, if we bring in 400 housing units, those are families that are going to support your businesses.
Right.
And so it's really a benefit for everybody.
Yes.
But communication is important, and we have been trying to do that. Take our plan and say, hey, this is what it's going to be, and also listen to their feedback and concerns because we want to make sure that we take that into consideration.
Right. Right.
Is there a timeline for proposals to be to the city, as well as obviously you mentioned the mandatory meeting? Is there another meeting if, say, a developer wanted to approach it at this point? Afterwards, what would the steps be for that?
So our information as far as the meeting is concerned, obviously is online, so they could see that. What we foresee happening is it's probably going to take a group of probably developers. I mean, ideally, we would like to work with one developer, a master developer.
Sure.
But they can work with, obviously our sign-in sheet for those that were in attendance is available. So anybody that may be interested in partnering too, they can, obviously have a conversation with those that were in attendance. Our request for qualification deadline is January 22nd of 2024.
Okay.
So that's when we get proposals and then we start our review process.
Very cool.
The hope and the plan is that by June of 2024, we have somebody selected.
Very cool. That'll be
That's
coming
pretty
up.
quick.
Yeah, that's quick. That's great. Well, again, it seems like a really cool project. I think it would totally transform, I think, Rohnert Park and kind of what it needs, that downtown area, that economic hub that way. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about the project that we haven't touched on that way?
I just want to emphasize that, when we've been talking a lot about development and kind of spilling over to the rest of the city, is, the city of Rohnert Park just has, and we talked about this earlier, is, we have these major economic engines within the city that are not necessarily within city limits, but in very close proximity. We have Sonoma State University, which we are trying, very hard to have a very good relationship with them because we all benefit. I mean, there's no question. I mean, we talked about the hotels and the fact that how, they benefit from the fact that, the presence of Sonoma State is within, our community. Then we have, the Grayton Casino, which also brings in, a different layer of entertainment and just amenities that are just, beneficial for our community. And, we have a very strong just support from the community, whether it's the business community, whether it's our residents, our school district. If there's something great about the city of Rohnert Park and the community itself, is that there's support there from everywhere.
Yeah,
it's just
awesome.
A matter of asking.
Right.
And I think that's so unique and important to highlight because any developer coming into our community can expect that friendliness. I mean, we talked about the fact that the city's known for being a business friendly, and it truly is. And that's internally too with our staff because, the faster a business opens, the better off everybody is.
Right.
You're creating jobs, you're delivering a service, selling a product, and So our goal is really to make it as easy as possible. And I think what we see here with this project is a reflection truly of what those values of the city are, which is that we embrace development. We want to partner with you, and hope that at the end we really come up with this vision and really meet that vision that the community has had for many, many years.
Right.
I think part of the being that you streamlined it so much and made it so friendly for a developer to come in. It shows that, you had 20, 30 different groups coming in, and in that you get so many cool different ideas that you probably wouldn't have had if the project was so difficult for a developer to make work. Then you might only get 2 or 3 proposals, which in the long, the community is not going to have as cool of a project than like what you've done. You just get so much engagement because of how friendly you've made it.
And that's our hope, is that we,
Right.
Once we select someone, I shared that, we have a 6-month, time frame, which could be sooner, depending on how quickly they really, work on their plans and submit them to us. That could even be a shorter period of time. And like you guys said in the beginning, it's unheard of.
It's unheard of.
And I think it's because we are demonstrating that, we're ready to move dirt out there on that site.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. It's an awesome project, certainly.
Well, so if a developer is listening to this or a community member, what's the best way to find out more about this project?
So we have a very good active webpage within our City of Rohnert Park website, dedicated just to downtown questions. If people have questions too, they can, we have a designated email address for questions related to downtown, and we will answer those. There's, information there. Obviously, they can also talk. We have Paul Carey, who's our dedicated senior analyst for this project, or they can definitely also outreach to me.
Okay.
And we would, answer any questions that may come up. Again, we're just, hoping that we do get a lot of interest and we do get a very good, solid developer to partner with us.
I hope you do as well. I think it's a really cool project. I would think that once developers hear about this, that your door would be beaten down with the people that want to be involved with this, because it seems like just a really cool opportunity in California that doesn't really happen very often, just because
Totally.
You're not having the pushback that way. And
It's unheard of.
Yeah, it's unheard of that way. It really is. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. Maybe in the future we can have an update. You can come back on and talk about how this is going. Maybe after the June deadline. That would be really cool to.
I would be delighted to come back.
To give us an update
Thank you,
then and go
absolutely.
through that way. Yeah. So, well, thank you, Marcela, very much for joining us today. If everyone enjoyed this, please hit like and subscribe to see future content. And thank you for listening. See you guys later.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Live Explore podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.